So the next speaker is Annie O'Connell. Annie is with Beef and Lamb New Zealand. She has been with Blue River as farm operations there and started her with ag research, did a PhD in embryo survival of prolific ewes, and her topic today is how our sill could be used for dairy sheep genetic selection.
Cheers, John. Thank you. I'm quite a fast speaker, so if you want to catch up time, I'm the right girl for the job. But actually, I'll try and dial it back a bit and just try to keep things simple. I realise in the afternoon of day 2. So I want to talk about principles and also get a little bit of information back from you during this talk too. Okay, so I'm just going to start by introducing my organisation. So we're Beef and Lamb Genetics. Has any one of you heard of that before? Got a few hands going up in the room, so that's cool. So Beef and Lamb New Zealand is solely owned by Beef and Lamb, but we are a new organisation within that, and we have our own board and our own objectives, and it's really focusing on genetics to do that. So the 4 components that have been rolled up, and this was back in 2014, was SIL, which I'll go into a little bit further, but that is basically the database where the genetic merit of the animals are being assessed. We have the central progeny test activities around, this is for meat sheep, of course, and that is underpinning the benchmarking of the genetic merit of animals. We also have a research arm, so what used to be called OVITA has now been rolled up into Beef and Lamb Genetics, so we fund research in the area of genetics. And we also have a component of beef genetics, which is less relevant to today, but it is a significant part of our program too. Our vision, or the reason why we exist, is we're here to be the world's best sheep and beef genetics. That's our aim. And our role in this industry is to provide that information and infrastructure for breeders and farmers to make the industry more profitable and making the most profitable breeding choices. So we are funded by Beef and Lamb Levy. So anytime a beef or a lamb or a sheep goes to the works, there is a levy that is put on to Beef and Lamb, and we receive some of that from Beef and Lamb Genetics. We're also using taxpayer money as well with MB research funding, and that's order of about 15 million comes from through our MB program, and we match that with Beef and Lamb Levy money to make some real gains for the industry. And we do have some SIL database fees, but they are a very minor component compared to the investment that we're coming in with our research and with our Beef and Lamb Levy. So tools then for traditional sheep farmers. This has been what we've been doing a lot of development in this area, and we're also noticing that even on these remote country farms where supposedly internet's not working so well, there's still more and more use of these devices, the iPhones, and technology is coming into place on a commercial farm and being a real commercial reality for farming in New Zealand. So that we can take a bit of advantage of that and think about putting in touch our farmers with the tools to be able to make those best breeding choices, so we can bring that technology closer to their on-farm decision making, rather than just having to think about that when you go to a conference or sitting at the computer. So thinking about the flow of decisions that need to be made, you think about knowing your breeding objective, and now that was really well described with Jake, just having thinking about as an organisation or a large industry breeding goals. But we're thinking at this point on the individual farmer developing their breeding objectives. But this could be where you're at. So where are you now? What is the market telling you? And where do you want to go? Those are the really important principles for you to figure out or make the most of any genetic program. The next step in that is, once you know what you want, is to find those like-minded breeders and flocks. And so these tools are available for our sheep farmers, but they're not really available yet for you, of course. And then once you've got that flow, it's then finding out the individual rams and individual animals that are of interest, and there'll be a price component with all that as well. What about dairy sheep? What can we do? What's available? I'm just going to describe SIL in simple terms. I think you just need to think about that as this diagram. Pretty much, if you consider the SIL database, or the Sheep Improvement Livestock Database, as a bit of a container for data, and with data flowing in from several flocks, from A, B, C and D flocks, I think what we really want to have is one evaluation for your New Zealand sheep milk. So a lot of variety of data coming in, but one evaluation, one report back. That means it's going to be more cost effective for you. So the investment we put into that and the intelligent minds we engage to be able to drive that evaluation, it means it's doing it once for you, for industry. But within that, there's still room to be individuals. So if you can have your data partitioned, so that you're only going to find you within flock comparison, so you'll know how your ewes and rams will rank within your own flock, but you may be less interested in what other people are doing because you're not sourcing your genetics from outside of there. So you can partition off like Flock D has here. And really, until you start shearing rams, that with A, B and C, considering they were shearing rams, they wouldn't be able to benchmark until they do that. So if you were interested, so it's not until we've got a good benchmark between flocks and be able to correct for all those environmental effects that we can get a fair comparison of how your breeding values are doing or how your flock is doing compared to another. So it's only when that shearing would happen that there would be an ability to have a cross-flock comparisons. So if you think about that today, if you decided to join up with another sheep milking farm today and shear some rams, you think about when that milk's going to be actually coming through, even if we take advantage of some of the embryo transfer and those neat techniques, really you're not going to get a measure of that milk production until a couple of years down the track. So for these first 3 years, even now, that data will be your within flock comparison only on your animals rather than being benchmarked between different flocks. And there still is a room for you to decide whether or not you want to have that, to permit that sharing. I'm just going to, we've talked about a lot of complex things here, and I just wanted to dial it back for a wee minute. This is a wee slide that talks about how the different environmental effects are corrected for between flocks, to be able to get how benchmarking sort of works. And so by the late Jeff Nicol has put this slide together, and he was used to with Focus Genetics. And I just, it's a simple little slide to demonstrate what I mean. But let's say we're charged with trying to find the best ram for weaning weight in his progeny. So we've got a flock A, B, C and D here, and each X is representing a ram. And so we're trying to find which would be the best ram to be choosing your weaning weight, trying to get the best weaning weight progeny here. Which flock am I going to go to? I hear someone saying C. Looks like flock C is doing a better job of getting weaning production out there, so let's have a look. The next, this is where benchmarking is going to come in, because what if the flock C is actually doing a better feeding regime? Flock D may have a tougher environment, maybe it's a bit more prone to facial eczema, or maybe there's just other management conditions that are going on that are explaining those differences between flocks. So the only way, or the best way we can correct for that, is sharing a ram between those flocks and then aligning how the rams rank relative to that benchmark. So this is where, in simple terms, this is exactly how SIL works. So we try to adjust for those between flock factors so that we can, and by having a benchmark ram, to be able to find the ram with the best genetics. So now we can see we can probably go to flock D or flock A and pick some of their best rams to get the best genetics for, in this case, weaning weight, but could be milk production for you. What does the SIL database look like and how do you interact with it? So it's a big pool of data, and we do have bureaus that are involved with helping data going into and out of SIL. And so they are just as an example of this happens to be a flock, a CPT flock, so I'm not showing you any private information. But there are a range of, I can see all the animals that have been born in my year. I can see a lot of traits that I've measured or characteristics I've measured. I can pull out all the individual records for those animals as well. And so it's a real central place for all that record, all that information to be, and it can be quite complex in our SIL database, quite large volumes. The principal thing that you need is a unique identifier of your animals. So it's really, the way we do that is we have a flock number. It's 4 digits is normal, but it can be more. We have an animal tag number. So that can be 4, but it can also be more digits. Preferably not letters, although some people do that. It just makes complication. And year of birth. So this is simply put an easy way to get a unique identifier. So it's not hard to think about that, having a flock number and some animal tag numbers. We also can accept EID to be aligned with that animal. So even when that animal is shifting flocks, its birth ID will always be the same, but a current ID may get a new flock number or even a new tag number and a new current ID. But this is where we can track those animals and have a pretty good, there's not reuse of that birth ID in our database. So we know a lot, we feel like we know a lot about interacting with technology, and we're brand agnostic, so we're happy to work with Gallagher and TrueTest and any other data gathering devices that are out there in our industry. We want to work with that, and we're industry good after all. And so we're quite familiar how to work with XR5000s and WANs and such like. But what we're not familiar with is how to interact with the milk meters and the data that's coming out of the milk dairy sheep industry. So that's something we have some learning to do. I just want to pause for a minute too to think about back to that breeding objective as an organisation or as an industry, and thinking about where you are and where you might want to be going. And so just recognising that I don't have all the answers, I want to ask you some questions just so that I can go home after this conference and relay back to the people I've talked to and the kind of things that are really important to them on in their operations. So I've done a little drop of these little devices here. They're a polling device. There'll be a couple per table, and if I could just get you, I'd really like to hear from those that are involved with sheep milking on farm. But if there's no one at that calibre at your table, then please feel free to pick up and give me some responses too. And we should flick through this pretty quickly. It's going to be a quick fire question round, and it's just some basic questions. Okay. So what you'll do is I'll put up a question, and I'll just ask you to give me your response by pressing either the right letter or the right button on this little device. So what's your primary role in sheep milk industry? Just so I've got a capture of the people that I've been talking to. Can I give you 5 seconds to answer that for me? Okay, so thank you. So at the moment I'm talking to a lot of milk harvesters, so thank you for picking up those devices and talking to me. And I have a lot of manufacturers and researchers here in the room too. Excellent. Okay, next little basic question. How much milk per lactation should a profitable New Zealand milking ewe produce? Could I get you I know we've had a lot of discussion around this, but I'd like to get a collective sort of answer for today. 5 seconds. Okay, so 56% of you say that 200 to 300 litres should be profitable, and that there are some that are looking for much more than that. So this is really good information for me to know where you might be going, or where you are. This is the next question, is about how much milk per lactation does a New Zealand milking ewe currently produce? So where are you at the moment? We talked about where you wanted to be, where are you? Right, so we are quite a wee way back. We're not surprised, are we? We've talked about this, we've been honest as an industry, as a group. So that's a really good capture for me, so I know exactly where you are and where you want to be. Can I just ask you, we've talked a lot about the different characteristics, but what is the one that you think is most challenging for your sheep milk? What's the must-have or the first priority? And maybe this will be an obvious one, but we'll give you 5 seconds again. No surprises, eh? So that's where we'll be starting. Excellent. Can I just ask, what's your current size of flock, especially for those that are involved in the milking? Okay, so we've got 54% of you in the smaller category, and we have got some with nice 3/3 of the people we're talking to today being in that quite a good sizable range. Can I just get some prediction from you, like being so positive at this conference the last couple of days, of what your ambitions are, or where you think you might be in 10 years' time for your flock size? How much are we going to be growing? Yep, so in 10 years' time, what you think you'll be? Chance to press? Okay, so there are some going to be staying the same. Some are going to be very ambitious. Excellent. I'm really excited to hear that. And we have about a good proportion maybe going from the small to the mid-size. So this is really good information for me to know how to help maybe build some infrastructure for you going forward. So thank you for that. That's the end of the survey. And I'm just going to finish. That was a little bit of fun for interaction, wasn't it? How am I going for time, John? I just got one more slide or 2 slides I'd like to go through, but I can do it quickly. So I just wanted to come back to the dairy sheep must-haves, and I was going to do an interactive, but time constraints, so I'll just flick through this slide. I've been listening to what you've been saying. I've also had a lot of empathy for sheep milking in the past. But these are the things that I thought that the dairy sheep must be able to do. She's got to be able to produce milk. She's got to be fertile. Maybe the number of lambs are important. I don't know whether or not singles, twins, triplets, whether or not that matters, or just being pregnant. It's probably just being pregnant from some of the I see. She must be feed efficient, and so adult size can come into that, about her what she's going to need for her maintenance. I'm expecting she's going to have to be productive year on year. You don't just want one good year out of her, so longevity or her ability to stay productive in your flock will be pretty important, I can imagine. Hygienic milk. It's been a challenge, although I've heard that you can just get a machine that will spin out all the dirt. Excellent. But, you know, I thought that hygienic milk might also be still a consideration for you, and udder confirmation can also come under that. And in this session, we've also talked about mastitis and a little bit of the healthy things that you're going to need healthy sheep with worm resistance as well. I believe you can't really drench them while they're milking, right? And FE tolerance. So genetics would have some solutions for those things that you can't handle with the treatments or can't have antibiotics in the farm. So the next slide is a positivity one, okay? When I think about what SIL can handle, that we already set up for infrastructure in our database to handle, is all of these things here in teal and blue. The stuff that we have to work on is the producing milk, so that is just one component I've got to work on to adapt our SIL database to be able to support you guys for your decision making. We have a little bit of work to do under udder confirmation. We do have ability to measure it, but there'll be some work to make sure it fits a dairy sheep model. And we do have some health stuff around mastitis, but I think it probably needs a little bit of review in light of what's important for sheep milking. Oh, sorry, I did lie, John. I've got one more slide. But my next steps are going to be having a look at how to make, or the most appropriate way to handle this, the data for the lactation curve, making sure that is accurate enough for supporting our genetic evaluation or genetic programs. It is going to be coming down to a cost, because daily milk will cost a lot for us to be able to adapt our system to involve that, whereas weekly and monthly measures will be more readily easy to put into our system. But we'll look at a value and we'll look at cost. Somatic cell counts we don't know much about at the moment either, but I'm pretty sure it's just a trait we can add to the side and then see how that adapts. And I'm also proposing to have an addition of dairy sheep into our SIL database. So it'll be a type, like a dual purpose or a terminal sire. We're going to have a dairy sheep type. And exit fates, we already have a lot of those around why our traditional sheep leave the flock, but we can add some dairy reasons why dairy sheep will leave a flock as well into there. And health fates, I'm proposing that we could have a look at some health fates that might be appropriate, that would be pretty easy, low-hanging fruit to help you with your selections. And there I end. I haven't touched on lamb rearing, but I can see there's a lot of management that still needs to be done in there, and I think genetics around lamb rearing is probably not the priority from what you're studying in the industry. Thank you.